Right. Hi guys, welcome to the latest On the Head podcast. Myself and Vincent again are joined with local comedian and probably the most famous man in West Belfast at the moment, Paddy Raff, or some people might know him, Nigel. How's it going, Paddy Nigel?
How's the form? Dead on. That's quite the crown. Like probably the most West well known person in West Belfast. That's
Didn't want to give you too much of a big head.
I've been in the Andy Town News about 3 times in the last month. Like, and that's you usually only get your birthday, don't you?
I haven't been in the Town News since under 10 football, in fairness, so you're doing well.
I didn't know it still existed.
What?
I didn't know the Andy Turney still existed.
No, it's still going strong. Doing the birthday shoutouts.
So, what's been going on in lockdown? Are you taking this time to prepare anything, or have you any news for anybody?
Yeah, it's gone like kind of stratospheric for me a wee bit in lockdown because things were already trundling along really well with the stand up comedy stuff and the online stuff, and I'd done the SSE and I think it was the 7th of March, and yeah, lockdown was looming when that gig happened. Like I joked on stage that this would probably be the last big gathering in Belfast for a good while, and I was kind of joking, but then so I had a second sold out SSE night to do at the end of April there, and it's being pushed back to at the minute it's September. It's probably going to be moved back even further to the start of next year. There's nothing really you can do about it. So yeah, that it came at a bit of a strange time for me where I was about to do two SSE shows, but yeah, I had nothing really too solid planned for after that, as in like now during what just turned out to be lockdown. So I just kind of went online and was doing more videos than I mean I always do videos quite regularly, but I just sort of upped the amount that I was doing to give me something to do, and then that kind of led to more exposure and giving me more time to write a few things. So I pitched the show to the BBC, and it's been given a green light for a pilot. So I'm currently in the middle of working, very early stages, but working on a TV pilot. So it'll be a half-hour comedy sort of sketch show from me coming up over the summer, and because of the kind of hype and stuff, I put another couple of dates on for the SSE early next year, and the third, what was that? So that's a third SSE show then sold out in 3 days, and the fourth one's two-thirds sold out already. So it's been crazy, but positive crazy. But it's mad that at the same time that that's all happening, you've got this other stuff going on where everybody's lives are changing, and Kim's no more work anymore, and everybody's stuck at home. So it's been a bit of a weird time, but productive anyway for me.
How are you going to work the pilot, Paddy, with COVID and the social distancing measures? How are you going to? Is it all you, or would you have co-cast there?
Yeah, well, the idea sort of the show was pitched to BBC originally last year, and I suppose I can see why they didn't really pick it up because it was very unknown at that stage. Whilst I was still doing my own shows, the wider public weren't really aware of me. So obviously the ideas and stuff that I had, I mean, like I'll just spin it around. There's the sort of the two strands of sketches, on the wall in the shed, but so the ideas and the way I had the sketches written did involve a limited amount of cast. The show was always going to be a bit more sort of centered around me because the online stuff I do is really just me getting half an hour away from the kids, and I'll film something myself. So I have never really involved too many people. But yeah, we had to kind of rewrite a lot of the sketches to just be me playing a lot of the parts, and we might have another, sort of one or two cast filmed at distance. But yeah, it's going to be. I don't know if you've seen like on Lemmy, the Scottish comedian, he does a show. He was already doing a show which was Lemmy's homemade show, and all of it was just him made from his house. And that's for a couple of years he's been doing that. So it's kind of looking at how he's done things and looking how using the techniques I've been using in the house to sort of play different characters, to bring it to life. So I think we'll start filming in about a week's time, and but it's me. It's just going to be me doing it. So we're going to try and use techniques like green screen and stuff like that to make it look a bit more like it's not just all filmed right here in the shed. So it'll feel a bit bigger. But yeah, it's going to be a strange one. But I think the public are more willing to see entertainment that is created in a sort of lower sort of technical environment, and just go with it. Like even podcasts and stuff like that, everybody's kind of really getting into consuming podcasts, and ones that are done over Zoom like this, because we're running out of things to watch. All our Netflix is running out of stuff to show us. So yeah, it's going to be a strange one, but in a way it's kind of good because it's a stepping stone for me into TV as opposed to just throwing me into a full studio and me kind of going, I've never done this before. So it's a kind of nice bridge into hopefully that.
Paddy, obviously the listeners won't know, but we know each other well. But can you sort of give even Vincent and the rest of the listeners an idea of how did the whole Paddy Raff comedy come about?
I started doing it in March 2018, so it's just over 2 years ago. Is whenever I decided I was going to do stand up, and um, yeah, like I used to play in a wedding band. I've seen you at a few. Did you ever see our band playing anywhere?
Yeah, you done Kiva's wedding, didn't you? My sister.
Yes, it did. That's right. Yes, yes. So it did. Carlingford. Aye. So like, yeah, it seems like donkeys ago, especially now that you can't get out anywhere with a big crowd. But yeah. So like, I used to be. So I'm 36, and I was a musician in a wedding band. So played guitar and bit of backing vocals and DJed as well. And I did that for about 10 years before I started comedy. So I had a bit of experience of standing on stage playing guitar. And yeah, and so I just decided to have a crack at comedy early 2018, and it was really because I was as a bit of an outlet and to tie in obviously with mental health kind of thing. I was working at the weekends just with a band, so through the week I was at home minding the kids, or well, it was just Rowan at the time, and Kim was out working. So it's like to have a creative outlet. I didn't really have anything in between gigs, if you know what I mean. And it's not like we're a band that we're recording albums and stuff and creating music. We're a
Yeah.
cover band. So as a creative outlet, I used to make wee silly Snapchat videos with filters, and it was just for friends and family, and like sending in WhatsApp group privately. It wasn't to put online. And then a few of them kind of leaked out online from them sending them to their friends and became viral without me even knowing it. It was then sent to me weeks later, going, "Have you seen this? It's on blah blah blah," or whatever. So that was it sort of in 2017 that was happening, and that kind of gave me the kick up the arse to do something with it. So I created my Facebook page and sort of went and decided to do stand up at the same time in March back 2018, and it just all sort of took off and snowballed. The stand up went really well, and the page online, I suppose, on Facebook and Twitter and whatever else, just kept growing. I kept having sort of regular enough viral hits. So it became something. I didn't think it was going to be a career. Definitely not. I mean, I thought I'd been playing in the wedding band and doing all that stuff for years to come. But it was nice. And I remember you were doing a bit of work in our house, and you were like, "Here, I hear you're doing a bit of comedy and all," and you were like, sort of just kind of looking at me, going, Is that people from here don't do that? Doing a bit of stand up." And it's like, I see how it takes me, like so. Yeah,
That,
and it's
that
just
actually brings me on to a good point, Paddy. Emma, my wife, obviously, whenever she goes up and picks the kids up from school,
yeah.
same as obviously Ronan goes as well, she would come
Uh,
home and say stuff to me like, "Did you see Paddy Ross's video? I never knew Paddy was funny. Like, I see him at the school," and I'd be like, "Emma, that's like Cristiano Ronaldo walking about just doing keep ups. He's not just going to be running about, you know, like a
yeah,
clown." So
yeah.
I
Maybe
was
they
like,
should do that. Do we work a wee 5 minute set for all the mas and das as we're picking up the kids? But loads of people say that to me. Just they either say it to me or say it to like my wife or whatever. I never knew, Paddy was funny. He was always so quiet. And yeah, I suppose you're right. It's not like Ronaldo running about, doing keep ups with the toilet rolls as he's walking up and down the aisles in Little. Not that he'd be there, but yeah, it's just one of those things that I've always done, and I haven't tried to keep it private, but I just think that it's sort of like it's a creative side of me, and the only place that it really used to come out was like in between family and friends. And my family and friends aren't too surprised that I've done comedy and I've been doing well at it, because if we ever had like a party or whatever, not that I was one of these assholes that you're like, "Oh, here he comes," maybe they were behind my back, but I was always the one, if sorry, "Oh, tell Emmons what happened to you that time," and blah blah blah, or tell, and I'm like, you've all heard this story, but there's like, "No, but he hasn't," and people want to hear it again. So that's kind of what my stand up is me sort of going back and pulling out stories from donkeys ago that I remember everybody used to ask me. I'll tell them is about that at a party. So it's weird, yeah, that people sort of that knew me but not closely seem really surprised that I'm willing, I suppose willing as well, yeah, being from West Belfast, to kind of put yourself out there, because we don't tend to do those kind of creative things where sort of kind of looked, and that's why it took me so long I think to do it as well, because I always thought I could maybe do something like that, but I never had the guts to try it.
That brings me to a point, Paddy, that obviously it takes guts to do what you do. It's
Yeah.
harder than to do what we're doing, but this still take a wee bit of guts for me. For a long time, I felt like, not that I have something to say or that's worth listening to, but I felt like I wanted to talk, and I certainly love talking to people.
Mhm.
But it took me ages to get the confidence
Yeah.
to come on here. And if it wasn't for Paul, I probably still wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Have you always felt, obviously you're in a band, have you always felt that there was this creative energy that you needed to get out there?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's interesting that the creative energy always kind of came out somewhere. Like, so before I was in a band, so from I left school, I didn't go to uni or anything. I did a HND in Biffy Tech for 3D design. So it was always sort of creative. I did art in school. I did drama, but I didn't really like being on stage. I liked the sort of behind the scenes stuff. So I have always had this creative side and always doodled and drew things, and then even like made wee videos and stuff. Whenever I got my first laptop and learned how to use that, then it wasn't making me any money or it wasn't going outside anywhere. It was just learning and producing a wee bit of sort of creative visual stuff. But then whenever you get into work and you do sort of a 9 to 5. So for about 7 or 8 years, I was a trainer in a call center. So that was a very sort of office based environment, and there wasn't really too much room for creativity there. And I find that it came out through me playing guitar. I've been playing guitar since I was sort of about 17, 18. So I always had that sort of side of things going along somewhere. So yeah, I suppose you could say there's always been some form of creative outlet. And then whenever I was made redundant in 2010 from the call center stuff, and that was when the recession was really hitting. Then I just decided to try and make a go of uh, the guitar and stuff, and it already started, getting a wee band together, and I decided I'll maybe just try and make that my bread and butter, and it was brilliant. I would nearly go back to it, and it was great to be able to go out and do something like that, where because I've been used to working in call centers where you go in and everybody is so down looking and it's bad atmosphere, whereas my work atmosphere turned into going into like literally the best day of someone's life and providing the music for that. And 9 times but more, like the 9 times, I think the reaction was brilliant. So it was a great feeling. But then what I felt was that maybe after nearly doing it for 10 years, that it became very much like work, even though I really enjoyed it. And I think that's why then I started making the wee sketches and stuff. So it was never a conscious decision like, this is feeling like work, I'm going to do this. But I think you're right, is that the creativity kind of needed to come out almost somewhere, and that's when the videos and stuff started, and then it just kind of took off and it took me in that direction. But I think that to be to be open about reveal parts of yourself through your creativity, whether it's talking, making a podcast like this and talking about mental health issues. It's something that I think fellas, but certainly it seems in Belfast, West Belfast, different areas, you really do feel like I say, whether it's doing comedy or creating art that isn't sort of the norm, anything like that, you feel a bit sort of, do we do that here? Is that something that we do? And how will that look to other people? So I think it's a positive thing to encourage people to, whether it's opening up about mental health or whether it's allowing yourself to be creative. I think it's positive to show people that you can do it, and you don't even have to be successful at doing it. Just go and do it. If it makes you feel good, that's what you should be doing.
How
100%.
important? Go ahead, Vincent.
Go ahead. Where do you think that sort of reticence in the sort of Belfast psyche comes from? Why do you think that we are reluctant to put ourselves out there? Do you think it's fear of judgment? Do you think Belfast is like a critical environment,
Mm.
or what do you
Yeah,
think?
there's a bit of that. I think it's a working class thing as well. It was like something that being funny was something that you do. I mean, like we know, really, we all know somebody within our group that is like the funniest, like has your side splitting when you're sitting having a chat, and that tends to be something you only do in and amongst your friends, whether it's out for a few pints or whether it's sitting in someone's house. And growing up, if you tried, did you ever think of anybody that would, you go, oh, he's so funny, he'd be brilliant at stand up, you should do stand up. It never crossed your mind to think, I'm going to go and do that. For me anyway, I find that we're just very self-deprecating, and if you're funny, you're funny, but don't be getting up on stage and trying to entertain people. That's taking it too far. That's you're a bit of a show off then. Where I find we're not like sort of the American model of, follow your dreams. Like parents be really encouraging to their kids. If you want to do this, do this. I think that we're sort of very. I don't know if it's a Belfast thing or it's a working class thing, but I sort of was definitely. We grew up in an environment where if you were trying too hard to be funny, or if you tried to do it for on stage or whatever else, that's whenever it got a wee bit sort of people like they wanted you to know your place. Don't know where that sort of necessarily comes from. I think there's definitely in my family there was a lot of emphasis put on your work ethic and doing it, getting a good job. Not necessarily a good job, just getting your head down and doing a job. Do a 9 to 5 job. It wasn't really, don't fart about and try and make a wedding band work, or don't fart about and try and be a comedian. Just get yourself a job and you can do all that stuff in your spare time. That kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Paddy, how important do you think it is for anybody's mental health that they enjoy going to work or doing their job?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's. I think in my sort of working life before doing stand up and before the wedding band as well, 'cause that's quite a. It's not really a common job if you like. There's not many too many people can relate to that, but yeah, that's sort of the what would it have been from 2003 to 10 that I worked in the call centers. It's very important because I remember enjoying it, the vast majority of it, but there was about a year where as a trainer there wasn't much work coming in the certain campaigns I was working on. And I remember like I was loving work and I was doing really long hours. I was like traveling from and I didn't drive at the time, so I was heading down to the train station for like 7:30 in the morning and getting a train down to Newry to be in before 9 to set up for a training group, and then train 9 to 5 and then walk to the train station. I wasn't getting back home again. I was out for 12 hours a day, but I was really enjoying it. And that's different. Standing in front of a group training people is almost like performing in a way. You were telling a lot of lies, certainly anyway, like with how much they're going to enjoy their job, but you just have to do it. But I remember whenever there's very little going on for a while, I had to go back onto the phones. And I remember being on the phones for a year, but I was sort of maybe a bit younger and able to cope with it, and it was all good crack. And I enjoyed my team, and I enjoyed that work for a year of doing like 9 to 5 on the phones. But then I remember I went back on the phones, and I always remember that's why I felt that I could connect to people in training, because I used to be able to say I've done this on the phones, I know how hard it is, and I wasn't sort of very blasé about it. People can be like that, it's all right for a trainer. You're not doing that, but I used to always remember and sort of tell people I know how hard it is. But whenever I got back, I was basically asked to do it or told to do it. It was the guts of a year. I was back on the phones, and it was really, really hard. And that's what really brought it back to me then about my training groups. It's like, this is what I'm sending them out to, and I have to really remember that it's not as easy as I can sort of talk it up to be for them. So I struggled, and it was there's wee things like wee tricks that you had to get of the more older veterans that were on the phones, like cover and putting a wee bit of paper in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. I was like, what are you doing that for? Like, cover the clock. Do not leave the clock on, because if you keep watching that, your day drags. So it was right. Whenever you were on your shift, you put it so you didn't sit watching the clock. But it was a tough time, and I was really, really looking forward to getting back into training. But I think that, yeah, it was a tough time for me, and I maybe started taking that home then, where work was always something to look forward to, and then once I finished work I could leave it and go home and just forget about it and enjoy myself. But I did feel like during that period that it was tough, and that's when I started to realize that I was coming home and just like falling asleep on the sofa watching the TV, and then waking up, and that was the only time in my life where I would have a couple of beers during the week. I only ever drink like one day a week, say one night, and never get opening a beer before 7 o'clock even. And that's whenever I started, sort of sitting watching the Champions League football and having like 5 beers, and then the next night having 3 with my dinner and stuff, and things like that. And I wasn't going and playing football, was making time for the things that I love doing, and I was just kind of languishing. And then I realised after a while it was linked quite heavily to the fact that I was on the phones again in work. And so yeah, it's tough, and that's why I kind of never would look down on my nose at anybody, in terms of mental health and people's attitudes and behaviours. Like, there are a lot of people, even sort of now, there's a lot of going on for people at home and the jobs that they have to deal with, and you can't just expect everybody to be as happy-go-lucky as you are just because you've got a decent job that isn't as tough as what other people are going through. So I always remember that. Would never, and I always said I would never go back to the phones, and that's when it was made redundant in work. I had the option to go back to the phones or try something, take redundancy and try something different, and I just took the redundancy and started the wedding band, and it was lucky that it worked out for me,
Redundancy could have been like almost a blessing in disguise, because if you weren't seriously enjoying that job, do you find that people can get stuck in a rut?
Oh,
Whenever obviously
totally.
you had obviously and do have the talent behind the scenes, whereas people can ignore that for so long and not have the confidence. But
Yeah.
what gave you the confidence to go, no, I'm going to take this and make it go? Because obviously doing the wedding band's a big thing, even as well. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that was it definitely was a blessing in disguise. And I remember one of the women from HR saying to me, and it was a wee bit at the time. I remember thinking that's easy for you to say. She was like, sometimes redundancy is the best thing that happens to people, and she's like, I know people that were made redundant from jobs that they weren't necessarily enjoying or whatever else. Even though I was enjoying training in the call centers at the time, and I really thought that was a career for me because I got my government qualification for it. You could do this course over a year, and I'd spent, I think it was a guts of a grand to get that. So it was a career for life for me. So when she said that, like, it's sometimes a blessing in disguise. It can, set you up on the other things. And I remember going, that's easy for you to say, but then it did. Like, I ended up being able to earn just as much doing the wedding band 2 nights a week, almost the whole way through the year. Like, but and yeah, I felt it was brilliant. It was a twist of fate. It was like that's for that was a good thing that happened, and I think that gave me a bit of an outlook then on life to go. If you get these opportunities, sometimes you should take them. Like you say, rather than being stuck in a rut, you should sometimes take the opportunity. And that's why whenever I started doing stand up, I didn't like jack in the wedding band and just decide that's me doing stand up now. But I was able to have a go at it, and it took a lot of courage to go and do it because it is. I mean, I've never been as nervous in my life as when I did the first stand up gig. It was only like 10 minutes or whatever, but it was so nerve wracking. And yeah, I think that being able to sort of see that a wee gamble like that can pay off sometimes, and a change of career, change of scenery, can sometimes pay off. And lucky that it did with the wedding band, and it has done with comedy as well.
Tell me this, and if it gets too personal here, do tell me to shut up. I have a sneaky suspicion I might know the answer as well, but knowing what you know now, even if you were earning less now than you were in the call center, would you still take the plunge in terms of what it did to your sense of self, your sense of maybe alleviating some of the pressures that you felt in a day to day sort of mundane job?
Yeah, so you're like, are you saying would I? Yeah, like
So
we.
if we went back to say when you were still in the call center and someone said,
Mm,
listen, Paddy, we know you have a creator
mm,
inside you.
yeah.
You take the plunge, you may earn
Mm,
a tiny bit less, maybe a significant bit less,
mm,
but you'll feel how you feel now in yourself. Would you do it?
yeah. Yeah, I would. And I know it's obviously hypothetical, and you could never guarantee that. But I've found that through being made redundant, that a work life balance is a huge uh, is something you really need to consider. A lot of people just sort of think that get fixated on the money and the material side of things and what they need, and as long as you can provide for your family and you're all sort of safe and well and happy that way. I definitely am a massive advocate of having a better work life balance. And there's been times where I've been offered jobs in the past, before comedy, when I was doing the wedding band stuff, where I could have been working almost constantly. I could have been teaching guitar during the week, and I could have been playing in like as a sort of an occasion band for the ceremonies of weddings. Like, I started one and I quickly realized that this is going to take up so much more of my time. So I had much more earning potential in terms of could have been DJing, and we were offered bar residencies in the band, and I knocked so much of them back, and let the band go and do it with the different guitars or whatever, because I was limiting the amount of time that I was spending on earning money, because I had a placed a higher value on being happy, rather than earning. So yeah, I think it definitely would have took the plunge. And also then when you are working, creating, or doing something that you love, you can't really put a value on that. It's so important that what you're doing, you're enjoying doing it, and all of that then would make you a better creative person. And I know not everybody's necessarily creative, but if you're in the right frame of mind, rather, and you're earning a wee bit less, it's sometimes that's way more important for me. So yeah, definitely. And even when I started comedy, being offered certain gigs, certain jobs, like there's a few radio stations came to me quite early on, going, could you write like a sketch or do a wee bit for us every morning for X amount of, Monday to Friday? And I was like, well, with everything else that I've got on it, that's going to take up so much of my time. And even though the money might have been great, it was like, no, I like to have my time with my family and, friends, and have a good work life balance. And I think a lot of people do get bogged down thinking that you have to take every earning opportunity that comes along. I suppose maybe for financial security, but you have to be able to enjoy, what are you working for if you're not enjoying the life outside of it? So I think there's a balance to be struck there, and I've always valued that a lot.
Yeah, a lot of the big comedians that I like and that Vincent also likes, they don't overly push themselves into everything. Are you worried of maybe becoming played out if you go into too much too soon?
Yeah, bait out's the
Yeah, being out the West Belfast version.
You're all right. Yeah, you overexposure. I mean, I've been offered work by like like I say, radio stations and um certain businesses, big brand name businesses from here, definitely like wanting you to do certain videos and certain ad campaigns with them. And like Nigel is one that a lot of companies are interested in, and I can understand why. And I don't take offense that I'm flattered that I'm asked for it. But yeah, it's like I've always sort of shied away from doing those kinds of things, because you can, like, people seeing you in that environment, here he comes again, advertising something else this time. You get to took all that and took the money from it, and you're then affecting your longevity, and how many people you can reach, because people are annoyed or sick seeing your face all the time. So that's why I've definitely kept what I do to my page quite a lot, is that because if you want to see what I do, then you come to that, and you follow the page or whatever else. And if you don't want it, it's not being forced on you through other mediums like TV, radio, or whatever. Having said that, I have now taken the step to go and do a TV show, but I think it's kind of the right time for me to do it, because there's an appetite there for it online in terms of the sketches and stuff, and it's the way to take it sort of to the next level in terms of the output. But yeah, definitely, like I wouldn't want to become the face of X, Y, and Z a company, because just from my own personal experience, seeing certain comedians or whatever, it never feels as funny. It feels a bit forced, and everybody knows now. I think everybody, the public, are a lot more switched on to when people are sort of doing influencing things or whatever else. Like, he's been paid to say this, or he's been paid to show this product or whatever else. And I feel really bad, because there's certain companies whose stuff I love and use that will offer me stuff like for free. For free meaning, we'll send you this, and if you do a couple of wee posts about it, whatever, then you have to put hashtag ad on it. And I'm like, I'd rather just buy the product than take a freebie and then be this person, be this comedian that is like seen as a social media influencer, because it just I think it kind of cheapens what you do, and it has a potential to kind of sort of turn people off you a lot more.
Yeah. See, on the flip side of that, Paddy, how do you know, in the sense of you obviously started out doing the limelight and whatever, how do you know you're then ready to sell out the SSE? Is there any sort of like figures that could say to you, listen, you could do this, or it could fall flat in its face?
Yeah, it's sort of the momentum. Like I don't know how much interest the listeners are going to have in like this side of things, but to put it in a nutshell, like I only booked. There she is again. Clara's just come and done that to me. She's a nightmare. She's coming back. Drive by, like, here she comes. But anyway, yeah. So the way that you kind of, when you're doing your own solo shows, as a comedian, like, oh shit.
She like on a wee bike just come past, like
Right, yeah, she was on a scooter earlier. But yeah, so whenever you kind of you start to do a solo show, the kind of traditional route to it is that you do loads of gigs in bars and week spots and open mics and comedy clubs, and then you build up to your first solo show. But I was kind of being asked from quite early on, when are you doing a solo show? Where can we come and see you? Because I was only able to say, in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to be doing 5 minutes at the pavilion. People are going, well, that's not. I had, sort of a lot of a following online building up. So basically, I booked the shows. You kind of like try and guess, right, what would be the right size roughly for how many people I think will come and see me. So that's what you're doing. You're guessing each time. And I started doing the Foundry, which was like 200 capacity, and the first gig was like 120 people came, which was amazing. And then I sold that out in September, and then you go, right, well, what's the next stage up based on how many tickets you think you could sell? So you're just kind of building and building, and you don't want to go for a massive leap and, like you say, for it to fall flat on its face. So that's why I went from like Foundry to the Empire to then the Mac last year, and that was when it really started to take off. Was because I booked the Mac for one night, thinking I might get 2 nights out of it, and I put it online, and it went, the 350 capacity sold out in 5 minutes, and I never, like, they've never seen the likes of that, and I didn't think it would happen. So put on the second night, and it sold out in a few hours. Put on a third night, because each time you're just kind of guessing, can you get another night out of this? So that was three in a row, and then people were still wanting to come. So then I did a so I ended up doing four limelights, and then the promoter then by that stage, who'd kind of paired up with me, knew the stats, was like, you've got an Ulster Hall in this at the end of this run. I was like, you think so? So I put that out and sold that out, and then he's like, there's another Ulster Hall in that. Like, oh, no way. So we did another one. So that was like 9 shows with 2 sold out Ulster Halls, and they were trying to convince me to do another one. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. People are going to be sick of me. So when I drew a line under that, the promoter just said, right, next year if you're doing a new show, your choices are Waterfront, which is double the Ulster Hall, or SSE, which was the SSE setup. It's like 3,500 tickets. Like, you sold that in that 9 runs plus more, if you know what I mean. Those 9 shows. So that's how we calculated it. It was like, do you go to the Waterfront and do 2, 3, 4 nights, or do you do one big one in the SSE? So it chose the SSE route, and it sold out in like 3 weeks, and we had to put a second one on, and it sold out. So, and it's now turned into 3 sold out and a fourth one looking that way. So it's mad. It's just like, you follow where you think, the size that you think you're going to sell out, and there was a bit of a leap from Ulster Hall to SSE, but it would be different if you just sold out one Ulster Hall. You mightn't really want to make that leap to the SSE then. So it's just been sort of a combination of listening to the demand out there, and then listening to the promoters kind of steer on it, so that I don't end up, booking like Croke Park or something like that. There, and there's only like a few thousand at the front, and the rest is completely empty. Get the ball
Alan's
out.
dog.
How do you cope, Paddy, with the sort of rapid acceleration of the career? Do you have to do stuff that sort of keeps your ego in check, or are you down to earth anyway? You certainly seem down to earth, but I don't know you.
Yeah.
Do you have to do some things that would sort of slap yourself in the face and put you back down to earth?
Yeah, I don't really. I think that just having a family, and being from where I'm from, and being a sort of somebody that values the relationship that I have with my family and friends. Like, I would hate to start losing friends because I wanted to slag about this, or I want to do a joke about that. It for me, my comedy is very much who I am, and I'm not trying to sort of go down like, oh, I want to be a bit more edgy, or want to do. That's just not the way I kind of I sort of make the way I think and how I've behaved in the past, and so I think that having a family and having friends and wanting to keep that life has meant that I haven't got really carried away. And like, I have people like stopping me in the street and wanting selfies, and you'd be out shopping and people come up to you and chat away to you, and it's lovely, but it's not like something that I haven't craved that, and I'm not going home going, oh, that's exactly what I wanted. It's just, it's a side effect of what I do, and I never even got into comedy to be successful, to do it as a career. Genuinely never even thought that it could be done, if you know what I mean. I never sort of had that goal in my mind. So I think always sort of remaining like that, and not getting obsessed with the how well you're doing and how big things are going. And people make comparisons between me and other comedians, and I don't think that's helpful or healthy to be compared to other comedians that have gone before you, or even comedians that are on the scene at the minute, because everybody just does their own thing, and I'm not about sort of the accolades and whatever else, and I always feel bad. Like promoters are like, right, we have to put how many shows you've sold out on this, like sell out, he's after X amount of sold out shows, and I always feel bad because like it feels like you're really blowing your own trumpet then. But they're like, if you want to sell big, you have to let people know this guy has done loads of sold out shows, and they're even saying like going forward now it'll be like as seen on TV. So it'll be strange, but I think that yeah, definitely being somebody that is, I think getting into comedy when I did at the age of 34, you've kind of formed who you are anyway by then. Be different if I started it as a a teenager or something, or in my early 20s, and you always had your eyes on that prize. That would maybe form who you are a bit more. I sort of I came into comedy almost sort of fully formed, if you like, as an adult, and with my family and all that stuff, on a young family on the go. So yeah, I think it's a bit maybe harder to change somebody like that started it at my age, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And do you find then that, do you ever get it in the neck? This may be too personal again. Tell me to shut up. Does your
No.
wife ever get sick of it? Like, Jesus Christ, Paddy, give me a minute here. Just come on. I told you to come shopping with me. Do you ever get any of
Yeah.
that?
Kim's been brilliant because she's been very supportive of, obviously it, when you see me on camera, especially during lockdown, because you can't, the kids can't go anywhere else. When you see anything by me, and you think about how long that took to shoot and then edit, whatever else, that is time that I wasn't spending with the kids. So Kim is with them. So there's definitely been times where it's fraught, but it's never sort of. She's always believed in what I'm doing, and has seen that it's going somewhere. And we both kind of agreed whenever I started doing comedy. It was like, if this isn't going anywhere after like a year, you know what I mean, if you're knocking your head against a brick wall and you're not getting booked for things, or you're not being asked, I'm gonna just drop it. I tried it and move on and go back to the wedding band and concentrate on that. So we were always of that mindset, and luckily for me, that things started to look promising quite early on. I've always had her support and buy-in from that, and she understands that when I disappear up to here in the shed for a while, before all the sort of the podcasts and interviews and whatever else, it was to do writing and to take calls and to do a bit of practice. But yeah, I'm saying that there we haven't been, I haven't gone into the house and just cracking up, and definitely that happens, and especially more during lockdown. But I let her vent, and then it's never like it's never like sort of you're up messing about in the shed. It's like she knows it's work, and we're seeing the benefits of it. But that doesn't change things. The kids can be so hard to look after. They're really energetic, and they want your attention all the time, and so it is quite tough. So I definitely set aside certain sections of the day where I won't be doing anything, and I'll take the kids, and Kim can do what she wants. But then Kim goes and just tidies. That's like her. That's great. That suits me because that's like her therapy. But yeah, no, I've never got it in the neck. There only be a couple of times where when I'm getting towards the end, and the only bit of friction is that Kim sort of, whenever I've done and recorded a lot of stuff, then I have to edit. She thinks the edit can be done in like half an hour, and it's like it can take a while. Like seriously, how much more? I have to go to this and do that. And like, you gotta let me edit this properly. And then whenever I put it online and it's flying, I'm like, sort of, see, I took my time over it. Look at how well it's doing. And then we always have a bit of a laugh about that. But yeah, so I think that's probably the only time that there's a bit of friction, is whenever I'm taking a long time to edit, but or edit or write. Like I know what the idea is, but I really want to write it properly. And then she'd be like, have you not started filming that yet?" And I'm like, "I'm actually not finished writing it." And then now she's understanding that if I take my time over something, whether it be in the writing side of it or editing, and she lets it go, then it ends up being a big hit or whatever. She's learned not to bother me then, so it's been a learning process for both of us. And I appreciate that she does that, because whenever I was made redundant, was focusing on the band, I was staying at home and letting her go out during the week, working and taking on a lot more extra work to kind of financially support us through those years. And I know what it's like to be in there, and so it's like the last thing I needed when Kim used to come home and I was trying to tell her how mad the kids have been, the last thing I needed was for her to kind of stop me in the middle of it. So I know, just let her get it all off her chest, and then we can move forward. So it's been a learning process, certainly.
Paddy, I'm just going to paint the picture here. You're about to walk out the SSE. Obviously, nerves are trembling. Do you have any anxieties, or if you did, how do you deal with them? You any techniques for stuff like that?
Um, yeah, I think that like one of the side effects is like of before going out on stage like that is that you kind of start to doubt all the good work that you've done, and even though it worked really well in the tour shows leading up to the SSE, um you kind of start to doubt yourself a bit, and I think that is when you have to let a bit of the egotistical side in, because I know I was saying that I suppressed that. You're saying you ever have to stop yourself, and you have to kind of then, as a bit of a coping mechanism, uh, remind yourself how many people have bought tickets to see you, and remind yourself how many great shows you've had, and remind yourself almost of the accolades and all the nice things that people say, because that's the thing. If you let them all in all the time, then it goes to your head and it changes you. But that's whenever that comes in handy, is to remember all of the nice things that people have said, like I say, and all the success that you've had, because those are the moments where the doubts start to creep in, and you might think about wee things that someone might have said or whatever else, and that's when you have to start reminding yourself. So I don't like sort of get like nice comments printed out and put on the posters and stuff. So, but it just in the head, I would sit and sort of go, no, look, this is all good, and there's people out there who have come out not because you forced them into coming to the SSE. They're there because they actually want to be entertained, and they're all happening, and that's what's been nice. I have a really nice mix of people that come to my shows, and they're all you're walking out, and it's like walking out in a home game rather than walking out in an away game. And you can see why teams. I always remember as a kid going, "What's the difference between home and away?" Like, because like you'd see somebody doing a bet, and I remember it was like, but they were like, but they're away. Like, what's the difference? Like when I was really, really young, you have no idea the difference that playing to a home crowd is, rather than nobody goes to a comedy gig, they're a stadium full of people who want you to fail. Do you know what I mean? You have to remind yourself that these people are on your side. So if you're going out and you're tanking, it shows that where the people are wanting you to succeed, then maybe it isn't for you. So yeah, I just kind of have to remind myself, everybody's there for a good night out. Think of all the nice things people have been saying, and I'm lucky that my warm up, rather than be a comedian who's not me, go out and do a warm up act, I have a show reel of sketches that I've done. Some are ones that have been online, big hits, and some are ones that they haven't seen before, and I put them on. So it's like for 5 minutes beforehand, they're getting used to. They're laughing at me, so I feel like I'm getting laughs from behind the stage. So I'm standing behind the curtain in the SSA, and everybody's laughing at that stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, my nerves are kind of settled a lot more by that. I think I would still be really nervous going on stage had somebody else have gone out and warmed the crowd up for me, because like I it's still not me yet. I so kind of like dip my toe in it beforehand with that. So yeah, I think that's maybe how I cope with those nerves and anxieties.
You ever be worried of offending anybody in terms of, obviously, society now, sort of in times where people seem to take offense to a lot of stuff? Because I can remember one of your first songs was Stacey's Ma, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you're just like, what way do people from the other side of the community view that, even though it's all done in lightheartedness? Do
Yeah.
you ever put something
No.
out there and go, oh, what if I offended him? Or
Yeah, I think for me, certainly in my stand up, is that people get a fairly good idea of who I am, and what motivates me, and I talk about my life growing up, and um, people understand that. So you can get away with a bit more live, in that there's certain things you would say live, that you wouldn't necessarily put out online, because it could be taken out of context. I'm not one of those comedians though that would be like using certain words, or going down real vulgar routes to get laughs. For me, so there, I never really worry about that. But there's certain we throwaway comments you can make where it's like, oh, if you had to put that online, somebody could isolate that specific section, and then sort of it gets blown out of proportion. So I'm lucky that I don't feel where I find that I make people laugh online and on stage it never really strays into those kind of territories because I suppose it's quite observational, my stuff, so it's relatable things that tend to happen in real life. And to me, one of the BBC execs we were talking to the other day made a good comment. He's like, it's my comedy is as spicy as real life is. And so it's like if I was the type of fella who was like a single fella and was out playing the field and getting into all sorts of scrapes or whatever, then that's what my comedy would be about. And it might be a bit more offensive because I'm making light of and retelling what's happening to me. But I'm married with two kids, and I live in West Belfast. We're all locked down at the minute, and I was a wedding musician, so that all those things play into my stand up, and I don't feel like I need to chase a laugh by being vulgar or by being offensive. But I have this sort of thing in my head where I'm like a bit of a joke calculator. My sets don't tend to be too jokey. You can't really isolate and go, oh, here's a run of jokes. It's all, stories and observations. Which isn't a great advert like from the show. People going, we're going to go to a gig, not hear a joke. There are jokes thrown in there, but what I'm saying is that, like in my head, if I hear a headline or something, my mind automatically can sort of like join up two things, and I go in my head, well, oh, there's a joke, but that is so offensive, I would never say it out loud, and it wouldn't even really necessarily make me laugh, but I know, oh, that could have went big on Twitter, that could have done really well online, or do it on stage, but it's just because my brain made that joke in my head doesn't mean I have to say it because it's not really who I am. Do you know what I mean? So I suppose you could say it's an element of self censorship, but if I was to say it out loud or write it down and go, does that fit into the way I normally tell stories or do stand up? Like, no, it doesn't. So I think a lot of comedians do that. They kind of just say it for the sake of it. It's like, oh, I wrote a joke, and they're kind of like looking for that shock factor. But for me, I've been lucky enough that I don't need to go down that route. And when you come see like my last SSE show, there was nothing that I did in there that I thought could be offensive to anybody. But it's not because I censored it out. It's just that's not the way I kind of tell stories and whatever.
Just to go back a wee tiny bit, Paddy, you mentioned tanking. Every comedian from locally right up through to Dave Chappelle, who in my opinion is the best there is, have a story, at least one about tanking. Do you?
You see, I was asked this for a podcast. A comedy club up in Derry asked me this, and I really struggled. And that sounds like so big headed. Oh, I've never tanked like, and I've seen like Dave Chappelle's like specials. And I've loved Chappelle from years and years ago, and then I've seen footage of him tanking on stage, and it's usually because he's out of his tree like on something. But yeah, I've never had like one of those gigs where you get out. No, I tell a lie. I have. But it was so early on that I kind of can chalk it off that I was only like my fourth or fifth gig. Wouldn't have been actually. It would have been a bit louder. Basically, it was like a charity night in Lurgan. It was a charity. Can't remember what the charity was, but I went down and was doing like a good long set. Wasn't the headliner, but it was one of the longer sets of the night. And there's a thing like where certain comedians kind of would have said like, just be wary about the gigs that you take because if it's not in a comedy club or a place where they're used to having comedy nights, the audience mightn't be, whilst you might have a big audience, they mightn't be the right audience for comedy. And that certainly turned out to be the case because I went in and it was very sort of, I wouldn't say hostile, but they were doing that thing that we love to do, which is we're funnier than the person that's on stage. So finishing their jokes for them or, heckling things and not even being particularly nasty, but just thinking that they're funnier. And the problem is that their mates that are comprise the rest of the audience actually think they are funnier. Like they're laughing at their mates more than they're laughing at you because they've never met you before. And there's your man. There she is again. Oh, she gave me a thumbs up this time. She's away. But yeah, like so they are genuinely like laughing at their mates because their mates are getting a bigger laugh than the comedian. So that was kind of going on. But I was able to hide back, gone and joined the Ra. So it was quite one side of the community, if you know what I mean. So whenever I bust that out, even though it's not promoting the Ra that song, but people just hear it and they were like, it was probably got them back on side. So I just about reeled them in. That's the good thing with the guitar in the early days was like if things are going bad, get the guitar in. But I sweated the bit out that night, and it was one of those ones, and it came the night after my second ever solo show, which it went brilliant. So you had this massive high of doing a solo show and it going so well, to coming down the next night to Lurgan and having people, and there was just this sort of, that was the attitude of a lot of them, sort of, where are you going with a lot of this stuff? So I learned the lesson is that to kind of be picky and choosy about how you do charity stuff. It's like, don't go out and ruin your career by having an absolutely crap night at certain events. Although not all charity comedy nights, it's more the location and whatever else. But like, do things online for them and whatever else, rather than throw yourself into the bear pit of going out at comedy nights that aren't necessarily going to be, they're not in the best environments.
Paddy, you said that obviously a lot of your comedy, it wouldn't be vulgar. I was saying to Vincent Offer before we came on that a lot of your videos would be sent around the likes of family WhatsApp groups that I'm in, obviously
Mhm.
because you're known locally and because it brings family together in terms of the laugh. Does that make you feel good that you can bring people together in terms of doing their comedy?
Yeah, it's been like it's something that I didn't see happening, but certainly during lockdown, a lot of people have been messaging me going, your videos have been getting me through lockdown, and when I started getting those, I thought like they're just being nice, they're over exaggerating a wee bit, but it's nice of them to say. But I just kept getting messages like that, and people leaving them comments on their videos, and then privately messaging me saying that you know that it's the only thing that they enjoy online at the minute, because there's a lot of negative and depressing stories going about. But that was something that I didn't see coming, and people would kind of tell you their circumstances, like that they're self isolating with people with disabilities or whatever else, people that are at risk, and they feel cut off from the outside world and whatever else, and they didn't know me beforehand, and they're seeing my videos and they're really loving them. So yeah, that's definitely been a really nice thing to hear, and then to realize that, yeah, and it felt like I was doing my bit in when things were really really bad at the start of lockdown, where people needed a bit of relief. And it was like, well, I could just sit. Nobody's forced me to make these videos, and I could just sit and enjoy the time with my family. And I thought, no, I'll still set aside time to regularly put out videos. And so yeah, I was getting messages from all over the place, like people over in England and stuff, and as far away as like Australia and America, from people who don't necessarily have a connection to here, who just kind of discovered my stuff. So it's nice to think that in some way, if they're all telling the truth, that you're helping people's experience during lockdown.
What about negative comments, Paddy? Obviously, whenever somebody like yourself, you're first putting yourself out there, same way me and Vincent are now. How do you deal with negative comments? The people. What would be your view? My view would be if you've nothing nice to say, don't say anything. Although
Yeah, of
my friendship group, our banter would be ripping each other apart,
course. Yeah,
but that's more like a term. That's more endearment. But I wouldn't get
yeah,
online and start ripping people apart that I don't know.
yeah.
What's your view on that? Would you be also, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything?
Yeah. I mean, I don't get any negative comments ever, so I wouldn't know. So,
Aye, right.
you're right. Why are you so shocked there? I right. Yeah, I've yeah, totally that. If you've nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. That's kind of what like I grew up being told. I think that I've really thought about this a lot, because I don't tend to get bogged down with them. I find that not responding to them is the best thing you can do, because quite often those people are just looking. They're looking at reaction. They're looking at debate. They're even happy if people pile in and start negatively. Like people defending me. They love all that. And you kind of,
Yeah.
so what I do a lot of the times is I'll just delete them or hide them, because it's not that I'm not open to criticism. It is just that these people are looking, and I think that they don't realize that it's not healthy for them to be engaging in that. So I don't like to add fuel to the fire. Don't delete them all, but sometimes just go hide that, delete. And I think that there's a strange way that I have of looking at it. It's like, like you say about you and your mates in your own WhatsApp groups, or whether when you're just sitting having a pint or whatever else, it's that, right? The difference is if you and your mates are all sitting out there and somebody mentions a comedian, and I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I know that because there's comedians out there who are not my cup of tea, but they sell out arenas and they, they're big locally. But that's fine. People think that you're not, that whenever a comedian or an artist or anything talks about these negative comments, that we're saying you shouldn't think like that. You should love everything and you should support everything. We're not saying that. It's part of human nature. You kind of bond over who you don't like in a way. If your mates, out having a chat and you're talking about certain footballers you don't like, certain teams, or you're talking about certain musicians or bands, I can't stand that. Did you hear that? That's a load of shit. Turn that off. But that's used as mates, whether it's in WhatsApp or whether it's out in a pub. But if somebody walked past you in a in a bar, would you start saying those negative comments to that person? No, you wouldn't. And if your mate started doing that, you'd say like, "Wind your neck, and what are you doing?" I think that online kind of removes that feeling of that you're talking to a human being. So people will say the things. So like I say, I've heard like relatives and stuff, and even I would be where you're chatting, you'd say I can't stand blah blah blah, and I said, you see that thing there? Oh, what a load of crap. And that's fine in your house. Nobody's saying you shouldn't be doing that, because like I say, that you almost bond over that. The two of you don't like that comedian, or two of you don't like that singer or whatever, or TV presenter, and that's just something you can't deny. It's human nature. There's a difference though, that people now feel that it's okay to say that stuff online, and come into, like, there's Caroline Flack, a perfect example. People just piling in, and and it's something I'm learning as well, is that I think we all need to realize that when you're saying those things online, that those people that you're saying them about will inevitably, or you're saying them to them, will see that. And I don't think people kind of understand. And I've had comments from people, and I click on their profile and I go, I know his brother-in-law or something like that, or I went to school with his brother. And the laugh of it all is they've got like a mental health awareness badge on their thing. You're like, there's definitely a disconnect there between people understanding what mental health awareness is and what promoting good mental health is about, and then that behavior. It's something that comes through second nature, a lot of those fellas as well have bad mental health, and I find it's mostly fellas. It's very rarely sort of girls, and that's my not my opinion. That's what I've observed. And when you think about it and you look at them, they often turn out to be people who you go, they probably have mental health problems themselves. They don't, whereas I can turn around, or my wife can turn around to me and say when something's on that she doesn't like, and then you have a rant about it, like I hate X Factor, and I would turn around, I'd be like, I can't stand it, and the way they cut it, and the way and you rant and rant and rant about it, and then I've got that off my chest. I feel a bit better. And I think these people are sat at home and they don't have that, whether they're divorced, or they don't have a partner, and they're not really on great terms with their family. They don't have those relationships where they can vent that, and I think that's why it spills out online. It's another, like, oh my god, I could actually go and comment to this person. Where's their Twitter feed? Where's their Facebook page? And then all of a sudden they're able to vent. So there's work that needs to be done, I think, around that, about educating people, is that has to come under the umbrella of mental health. And I don't think that the sort of be kind hashtag has done enough to remind people and join the dots there, that people's mental health is negatively affected by the way that you go online and comment and what you say online. And just as much, we need to start calling it out, just as much as if your mate was being an absolute asshole to somebody, not even in a pub, because I know people get drunk, they can start behaving in certain ways, but like on a bus, if you were sitting and your mate just turned around and said something to some woman on a bus as she walked past, you'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Sorry, are we allowed to curse on this? Do you? I haven't.
Certainly, go for it.
Okay. Oh yeah. So you were like, what the footings are you doing? Jeremy, and you would say, what did you do that for? And I think we should start doing that online. Start calling it out online. When you scroll down, you see that your mate's commented on or something. Like, message them and go, why are you doing that? I just think there's definitely online. There's a bit of a disconnect as the humans that you're talking to.
Yeah, just the thing you said about the be kind. A couple of things I want to say. I think that whole be kind thing is nonsense. It certainly has some substance, but
Yeah.
the substance has to come from your actions, not what you're posting.
Yeah.
It has to come, because that's just sloganism otherwise. And I think that the social media, that's what they cater to.
Yeah.
I think when I used Twitter, it was 140 characters. You could do
Yeah.
nothing with 140 characters. Now I think they doubled it. But it has to come in the action. It can't come from your Facebook post. Like, if you're putting up a be kind picture, yet you're shouting at your wife because she was 10 minutes late from a night out, or you're having to wait outside,
Yeah.
that's not being kind. You have to sort of go on the action.
Yeah.
The other thing was about, I hate to sound like a meme, but see the social media haters, I think, and I've probably been one myself back in the day, I think it's a projection of your own insecurity. I think if someone sees you, now everybody's comedy your comedy might not be everybody's taste, but when they direct personal insults and they say, you're this, that, and the other, I think it's just because they're angry you're doing something that maybe they wish they were doing. And I know certainly I've done that. I see people on podcasts years ago when they were just becoming a thing, and I was going, he's shake, I hate him. And it's because deep down in me, I didn't have the guts to go and do what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's probably something that you'll experience. You'll probably know more than me about that because we're not out there that long.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've I think you're right, and that's the thing, that I think those are the comments that I would delete or hide, is the personal insults, because they've no basis. And you're right, it is a bit of projection of I'd rather be doing that, and jealousy and whatever else. And yeah, I just think that I think that social media is such a huge there's such a huge responsibility. We used to do, when we trained in call centers, there was a section I used to train people on, and it used to talk about companies' corporate responsibility. And it's basically, or was it, was that the right term? But basically, what it was talking about was that companies that trade in certain countries or certain areas have a responsibility to mitigate any negative effects that their earning and making a profit has on the consumers. And I think the likes of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram are getting away with murder to an extent where they're some of the biggest companies in the world. I know Facebook owns Instagram now and WhatsApp, but like, they're some of the biggest companies in the world, but they don't do enough and aren't paying enough. Do you think of the money that they earn each year in each region, in each country? They need to be paying money hand over fist to help with mental health charities, because they're causing such a problem. They're opening up these lines of communication and not doing enough to either police them or to support the communities that they're earning money off, because they earn the money through, people go, Facebook's free, but they're earning money via advertising, because they sell, based on the amount of clicks that videos have, likes and shares and all. So it's a big money making operation, and they need to be paying more to help, because certainly government is the first port of call, but government can generate money for charities like that by standing up to big companies and saying, you need to pay your fair share. Because I think that so many of the problems come from whether it's tangible, as in somebody was bullied on this platform or that platform and they ended up taking their own life, or whether it's sort of a bit harder to nail down, but it's just a general problem that people find the discourse online is really bad. Those are the areas it's happening. Those are the companies making money off it. I think they should be paying a bit more into it, and it's supporting mental health charities to then make the connection that you're saying, to help people know that what you're doing is projecting there. You have insecurities, you have mental health issues, and this isn't the way for you to deal with them. This isn't healthy for you. I think that's one way we could be getting more funding, but you feel like you're talking to a brick wall when you say things like that, because they're not making them pay their fair share and taxes and all that stuff as well. So I think that's a bit more of a pipe dream, but I think that's the way it should work.
Yeah, it's certainly something that hasn't came up. We've been asking people what they thought of like strategies to improve and promote positive mental health. That could be one, but they're not going to do that. That's not realistic.
No.
I think that certainly Paul and I's platform isn't anywhere near as big as yours, but do you accept that whether you got into it for that reason or not, that you have a responsibility to promote? I know you're a comedian and you do promote positive mental health through that, and it makes people laugh. But do you have a responsibility to sort of show a normal side to you? maybe suggest sometimes that you have had some mental health problems, because we all have.
Hmm.
Do you feel any responsibility to share that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, like I've mental health is one of the kind of sort of charitable elements or areas that I'm always sort of more keen to support. I'm not saying a shy away. It's like you have to divide your time up. I mean, if I took on all of the offers of sort of promoting or working with every charity, that's all I would do, and then all of a sudden there'd be no point in them coming to me because the person or the persona that they wanted doesn't have that traction anymore because you have to balance both. But mental health is one of the things I'm always keen to help out with because I feel that it gets left, it languishes, and it doesn't get funded enough, that it do. So like I did, there's a charity up in North Belfast, Tammy, and they had an event and I went and I played at it and I got a full band together and did a full live band set of all of my parody songs and all. So I'm always that's where I'll sort of those are the charities that I'll be really keen to work with, and even doing things like this. But yeah, I think you're right in that, as a somebody that's out there in the public eye, um which is I'm still coming to terms with, and kind of trying to think of myself as somebody that people recognize and will take notice in what I do. Yeah, you're maybe right. Maybe there's a way of me using that platform a bit more intelligently to promote. But I do think that it promotes good mental health in a way, because so many people even recently, like I said, have been saying, oh, we're really are loving your stuff, it's getting us through lockdown. And they go, right, well, I'll keep doing that. But yeah, to maybe be a bit more real, like you saying, like be a bit more confessional, almost be a bit more open about mental health and stuff like that.
Yes. Well, I know it's a problem for a lot of men. I would go so far
Mm.
as saying most men, they sort of
Yeah,
hide, or they have
yeah,
one person that they can fade in. And I think
yeah,
we should move past that whole macho, because it's just part of the human condition. You feel sad, you feel anxious, you feel all of those things, and
yeah.
everybody does. But
Hmm.
if you were to, for toxic, like Michael Jordan watching that recent documentary, you would go and think that he never felt anything other than pure competition and going
Yeah.
to win everything. Where if people that have a platform that just discussed it like it was normal, like we would discuss football, we
Hmm.
would eventually normalize, and maybe more people would start talking, and less suicides would happen, less self harm,
Yeah,
less
yeah, yeah.
body conscious issues, stuff like that.
Uh-huh. No, totally. I mean, like, I think for me, and that's why I feel like whenever we get to the sort of the conversations when I'm chatting to people about mental health, is that it's like I haven't, and I'm lucky that in a way that I haven't necessarily felt that gone to the depths that so many people who really need our help have and find themselves in. And so and what I don't want to be, what I want to be careful of not doing is pretending almost that I've been there, because I haven't. And that's the thing, is that I don't want to be sort of repackaging sections of my life and going, oh, I was really, sort of, because I've read and I've listened to people and I've spoken to people who have gone through and are in the midst of depression, and what they explained to me, I have never been, anywhere near as bad as badly as they're affected. So I don't want to kind of in a way trivialize what they're going through. But what I will say is, like, one of the reasons personally that kind of spurs me on to do these things to help raise mental health awareness is that my cousin, who was only 2 years older than me, took his own life 10 years ago. And he was in his mid 20s then, and it was one of those things that really hit me, because at that time that was almost like, I don't know if you remember, like there was a bit of an avalanche of suicides that never stopped. We thought that this was maybe a phase or whatever, but when we were growing up, like I'm 36, and I remember never really hearing of any suicides growing up, and getting even into my teens. And then I remember the first person that in was a friend of our sort of friends circle, and it was actually a girl that took her own life. And it didn't start an avalanche then, if you know what I mean. That was still a one off, and it was every few years. And then when my cousin sort of took his own life about 10 years ago, that was in and around the time where it really started to kind of, you know get really serious, and it just kept going. And again, coincides with that was about when Facebook really started to hit its stride, was about 10 years ago, if you know what I mean, those kind of social media outlets, um, connecting people in that way. And that for me was a big thing. And from then on, you notice a lot more of it happening. And it was something that had a huge effect on me in terms of opening my eyes to the depth of problems that people find themselves in, and trying to sort of put yourself in their shoes almost, and thinking about how bad things must have been in their mind to think that that was the only option. And there's this sort of patronizing thing where it's like you saying to people who find themselves thinking like that, um, that it's always, there's always light at the end of the tunnel and all that. It's like to understand how badly, like he was a brilliant man, like really, looked after his family and really really caring fella, and it wasn't a selfish act that he did. How bad must his mental health have been for him to take his own life? So it's something that I've always, since then, have been really sort of conscious about, and like taking those steps, maybe subconsciously, to make sure that I don't take so much work on that I would then create the environment where mental health problems can really take effect, and realizing the benefits of a good work life balance and things like that. Um, I think have helped me maintain good mental health, um, going forward. But that's what I'm saying. Do you know what I mean? Is that I don't want to try and exaggerate the mental health problems that I might have had. Do you know what I mean? To trivialize people who have suffered from real depression, and other issues.
100%. There's something that keeps coming up throughout all of our podcasts that we've done so far is this issue of social media and the negative side of it. No one hates social media more than me. Sound like Trump there, but that's true. There is a definite correlation. I don't know if we can call it a causation yet, between the increased use of social media, the smartphones that are basically with you all the time, and the increase in mental health problems.
Yeah.
As a father, what way do you plan on introducing that into your kids' life? Because there's no way that you're going to be able to stop it totally.
Yeah.
So do you start having conversations before you introduce the smartphones, or do you teach them about empathy and about understanding that other people have feelings, that they're not they actually exist, they're not just a computer screen?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally get what you're saying about social media and it being more of instead of a correlation, a causation. I think it is, but we've had this conversation, like me and my wife and other people. You do that thing like, right, if you could like get rid of social media, would you do it? And even with me and a lot of my platform, my 90% of it is on social media. I don't really know if you would call YouTube social media, but I'm not even on it that much. And yes, I'm going to be doing TV, so most of what I do is online and social media. I was like, would you give that up? Genuinely, for the benefit of society, I would. And I think that's the thing that people talk about. If people are voting for certain parties because of the taxes, they'll tax the rich, and if I got a bit of money about me, that I would be like, I want to keep out. Was see, for the sake, if it genuinely would make society as good, I'll make do with whatever. I'll change jobs and do whatever, but for the good, I would rather it was gone altogether, because it's so toxic, and we're not allowed it again until we work out how to do it properly. You know what I mean? And I think that it's never going to happen. That's obviously a massive pie in the sky thing. So it is about like how do you mitigate the effects of it with your kids, and that is, we're at that cusp now with Ronan. Like he'll be 6 in a few weeks, and he's already, because he sees that I have a lot of social media stuff going on and make a lot of videos, and kids are obsessed with YouTube and YouTubers and stuff like that. We don't tend to give him too much screen time, but when he's talking to kids in school and stuff, that's who they kind of idolize now, and that's what they want to do and want to make videos. And we're at the stage now where we do say to him, he'd be like, Dad, can me and you make a video? Can I make a YouTube channel? And I'm like, don't think I want you to have a YouTube channel yet. And he'd ask why, and we'd say, Because not everybody will be be nice on. Then people, what if somebody said something bad to you, and then you can see him kind of thinking, he's like, does anybody say anything bad to you, Dad? And I'd be like, yeah, every now and again. And then you can see him thinking about it. So I haven't had like an explicit conversation about the things that can be said and done, but we've shielded him to a point, but he will want to start getting into it, and without breathing down his neck, and you can't protect him 100% of the time. It's going to be challenging about managing his sort of his it's part of growing up. It really is, and you're never going to be able to keep them completely off it. And it's a potential like sort of enriching thing for them, like to learn how to sort of interact and create. He could end up going down a similar career path to me, but I don't know. I mean, like, and is there any guidance? Even that's what I was thinking. Like, is there somewhere that is anybody even made anything like for parents to kind of give like wee tips about how to? Because that's one of the first places I would start, because I'm at a bit of a loss.
One of the first things that I just, in the interest of like being open and honest, I was probably addicted to Twitter way
Mm.
back in the early days and loved it. And still now, when people talk about it, I have really fond memories of it. And obviously, I'm not a
Mm.
celebrity, so I wouldn't have received any criticism or anything on it.
Yeah.
I can remember reading one time about all these high level Silicon Valley CEOs who, like from Facebook, Steve Jobs at Apple, and I was reading about the schools that they were sending their kids to, and it was all technology screen free schools. And in my head, I was sort of going, Jesus, so they're making what's essentially drugs in a handset for us
Hmm.
and our kids,
Yeah.
but they're sending their kids to screen free schools. And for me,
Yeah.
that was sort of like drug dealer selling drugs, but won't sell
Hmm.
them to his kids.
Yeah.
And I'm
Exactly.
sort of like, there's lots more here, and they know a hell of a lot more than we do about all this stuff. So I sort of started to dig in more. And the more you dig in, the more you find that it's toxic. It shortens
Yeah.
your attention span, it shortens your memory, it limits your empathy levels because you can't see the person, so you can't react to their body language and their micro expressions,
Yeah.
all of that. And these
Yeah.
kids growing up today are losing it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
Jesus, what are they
Yeah.
going to be like when someone from a school today is going to be running the country in 30 years?
Yeah.
And what are they going to
Yeah.
be like?
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's so true. I didn't know that now that they're at screen free schools, and that just shows you that they're the people that are most informed about the effects that their product has on people. So yeah, for them to be making that decision is huge.
Yeah, you should check out the screen free schools. It's dead interesting. Particularly, I don't have kids, but particularly for
Yeah,
someone that has kids,
yeah.
for
And
both
that
of
was
you
like
actually.
some. There was a video I watched on YouTube, funny enough, and it touched on that a wee bit about our lack of empathy and how your timeline, and that's one of the, was it Blind Boy from Rubber Band has talked about like a post truth era that we're in, and he was like, on your timeline you're scrolling down and you can literally see picture of a puppy, man about to be beheaded. Then you scroll on down and it's a wee post from a granny asking for, any recommendations for a good plumber. Paul, I just passed you on. And then and you scroll on down, and then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, it's a fail video, and you see a wee second of it, and it's like somebody like breaking their neck, and it's like, all right, see, whenever I was growing up, you could not have seen all of those things in like your entire lifetime up to the age of whatever age you were. Like I never seen footage of some of the horrific things that you can just see on a timeline all of a sudden. And it really affected me. I remember the first time somebody showed me a video in work in the call center. Actually, this fella was on a website. He'd find, like, in a call center you had like a firewall that would stop you getting on certain sites. He'd find a loophole in it, and I was like, "What are we all watching?" And it was like a man getting beheaded or something, and I like had this sick feeling in my stomach. And from then, and it's never really waned, and of all anything like that. But that's what I'm saying, is that you're scrolling down your news feed can have any amount of shite in it, and it often does, to the point where you become numb to the things that you're seeing. You see like a stat for, coronavirus deaths or whatever, or how many died in a certain care home, and you just kind of take it in the way you go. It doesn't affect you as much as it should do, and it's in amongst like I say, pictures of cute things or whatever else. And I think that that's something that we grew up without, and now we're seeing it and we can kind of analyze it. But like you say, these kids are growing up with that, and in 30 years time, kids with that lack of empathy will be, running the country. And what will that mean? And yeah, it's definitely something that needs managed. And me being online and knowing the pitfalls of it, as well as the successes, the highs, and what can be achieved, it's something we're going to have to really manage and keep it an eye on. Because if you're just lazy about it, then you're basically saying to your kid, away you go. We're sending you out there without the proper tools, without any protection, and they could end up with serious, problems mental health wise. And I think the thing that brought it to me was that a few years ago, maybe about five or so, one of our in-laws' kids set up a YouTube channel, like just to post their stuff on, and instantly I was like, is that the best thing, to be allowing them to do that? And I don't know if they did it with their parents' consent or whatever, but it was just they were a wee bit too young for it. And I was like, I remember going, oh, I would be really really worried about that. So yeah, it's something we're gonna have to discuss and think about it. But you can't shield them from it, like I say, totally. So it's gonna be a bit of what's the word, like a minefield, yeah, certainly going forward.
Yeah, the videos, the one you actually mentioned there, I can remember watching that in school, you know, breaking through obviously the firewalls and people watching things in ICT. So
Yeah.
you're 15, 16, so you're just worried about kids with smartphones, what they can see now, but maybe a few more gigs, Paddy, you might have to get Ronan and Clara into one of these non-technology schools.
Oh, I yeah. Just is there any about, like I would be homeschooling. I'm trying to homeschool them without a
How's,
screen.
how's that going, by the way? You doing any teaching?
No, I haven't really had to do too much, which is good. Because I've been working up here. But that's a stressful um thing in and of itself. Like, because the schools, just like ours go to the same school, like, and they keep up like on you, like they want that. And I can say obviously, it's their education, whatever else, but there's times where it's just almost impossible to get them to do what they're doing. So I certainly have a lot even more respect now for what the teachers go through, and who knows what the classes are going to look back whenever the kids go back. And that's something as well that I was saying, is that this thing you've seen, like the pictures of schools in Denmark where the kids are sitting out in the playground. They've got like a box that they're only allowed to stay in and drawn on the ground, and then in school they're not allowed to touch each other and they're to be certain meters apart. Like, that is against the most basic human instincts, that if one of those kids fall and hurt themselves, that one of their mates can't run over and pick them up and give them a hug. So I think we have to be really worry about, sort of exposing this generation of kids to this really bizarre school environment.
I don't know what school that most of our listeners went to, but in the schools I went to, that wouldn't have been happening. Like,
You couldn't have got us all into, like, was 35 I can remember there was been about 35 people in our class sitting on each other's knee.
yeah, the only good thing about that social distances is that in the saal they couldn't have threw you down the banks. Wouldn't have been allowed near you to get you.
Many a time my brother coming home covered, just brown head to toe, threw down in the bank.
So, what have you been doing to relax in, just to finish us up in lockdown or in general? What would be your relaxation techniques? So, for yourself, we'll open it up. We usually do favorite films, TV shows, sport, and then for yourself, what would be your actual favorite comedian? I know Flinty said Dave Chappelle. Would he be up there? Or
Yeah, Dave Chappelle definitely is, and that's one of the ones where you think about Dave and his offensive kind of side and the stuff that he says, and I think he gets away with it because he's that intelligent with the way he explains his thinking. He will never just say something shocking for the sake of it. There's always a real, sort of a justification and context to it. Not everybody agrees with it, but I love Dave Chappelle. Um, and loving his kind of the new comedy specials that he's come back with, and again, like, being able to separate the politics and his worldview on certain things that offend people, I can still laugh at it, but go, I don't take my cue from that. I don't go, oh, that's really funny, because like then if I sit and analyze what he's just said, I like would say to my wife, right, I can. That's why people are pissed off with this, but I don't follow that to the letter. You know, you can kind of go, you can just laugh at it for what it is, but it doesn't affect your worldview. But I think my favorite comedian of all time would probably be Billy Connolly, and it's just he's the comedian that we watched, that you could sit and watch with your man dad from the age of, you know, like sort of 7, 8, 9. And yes, he would stray into certain areas where it might be a wee bit sort of risque, but it was real life, and it was like they knew it wouldn't last for too long. He wasn't going to get too vulgar, so that was one of those comedians that from a young age we were able to watch. And I've always watched comedy. Like I've watched loads of different comedians growing up. Stuart Lee, and loved Russell Brand as well, and even Peter Kay. Like I love Peter Kay, and so that's been always something that I've been able to go to, and a bit of escapism, and music as well. Listening to music and playing music, and that is one of my relaxation things. Is I come up to this my shed. I'll show you. I'm quite proud of it. Like, there's the wee 360 tour.
Man cave.
It is pure man cave stuff, yeah. But this has been an absolute godsend for so many reasons, because we built this just before. I say we built it, like the shed factory delivered it, like, and put it all up.
And then you put that settee in.
I know, state of it. It's been thrown out when IKEA opens. But yeah, like, so having somewhere to come and escape to, like Paul, because you've seen the size of our house, like, and it's like, it was funny, you come round, you were doing our bathroom, you know, you couldn't swing a cat in here. And it's like, no, you really couldn't. You can barely take a shite in it. It's that small, but
you can't get taking a shite in the house when you have two kids in anyway. Like, I know in my house, it's like, you think there was a stand-up show going on whenever you're in having one.
You do the Superman one where you just do it with your hand.
The amount of times I've nearly been knocked out by the door with someone trying to bust in.
But so that's why this is brilliant, is because like being in a mid-terrace, if you're a musician and you want to play a guitar, I can just come down the shed, and that's what I do. Even if I've had a long day of, you know, writing and recording and doing a few Zoom meetings, I just get the guitar out at the end of the day and play music and play songs, and not necessarily songs that are to do with my stand-up or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of how I'm able to relax at the end of the day.
Who would be your favorite band then?
Well, I think like a favorite band of all time would be Queen, and that's just because that's the band we all grew up listening to in the house. So, we had a tape of Queen live at Wembley, taped in 1986, and it had the adverts on it as well, like from ITV. So that became like a collector's item. That was something we watched for years and years after. So Queen, like, and they're an amazing live band, and but then being a good bit of rock music as well. So in the likes of Manic Street Preachers, and even the likes of System of a Down or whatever. So like that's my kind. But I listen to a good sort of broad spectrum of music. But it's just, you can't really go past Queen.
Yeah. Whenever you listen to music now, do you just hear lyrics that you can change?
Hi, funny that is. I'm trying not to do that, because it's ruining my enjoyment of music. But yeah, every now and again the song will crop up, and I hear the lyrics and I go, oh, you could change that easily, and then all of a sudden you've got a parody song in your hands. But I've kind of limited the amount of parody songs I've been doing, because I think I could pump out one a week, but the quality, it has to really make me laugh before I'll do it. Which is why, like, even you're saying about Stacey's Ma, even for me in the early days, I was of doing stand up, I was like, this is a bit risky. I wonder, will people understand that it's a joke? And people did, because like when I finished at the SSE back in March, I wasn't planning on doing it again, because it was from an earlier show, and when it was finishing, it was like, okay guys, that's me, and somebody all out, Stacey's Ma, do Stacey's Ma. I was like, oh, you just
Wonder
where
that person was from.
And did you do Stacey's Ma as well?
It was Stacey's Ma. It was actually Stacey's Ma, and then so yeah, that song has become like a bit of it's like the biggest hit. So that was class to be able to finish. And again, like I say, people get an idea of who I am and what I'm about. So by the time you do that at the end of a show, even no matter what side of the divide you're from here, people just laugh and joke along because they know that it's all a bit of crack and there's nothing serious to it.
What about TV shows, movies, apart from obviously Frozen 2 and Rent's Toy Review? What have you been watching yourself?
All right, that wee fella. Yeah. So I would watch. I mean, in terms of films, my favorite film is one called Midnight Run, and it's starring Robert De Niro. It was like the first comedy film Robert De Niro ever did. So like way before like Meet the Fockers or anything like that. It's brilliant. You have to watch
Somebody,
it.
I think you might have told me to watch that before.
Don't think I have because I very rarely mention it. But there's if somebody's told you,
Somebody said to me it's about to be brilliant.
yeah, it's very funny. It's 80s. It's just really well written and the dialogue and there's certain characters in it. But yeah, it was De Niro had said to his agent or whatever, I want to do a comedy movie, and it's not like sort of slapstick, sort of the way it's a really just a really good 80s kind of cop comedy. So I enjoy that, and TV shows like I just tend to watch whatever's big on Netflix because the other curse of social media is that if you don't watch it, someone's going to ruin it for you. So it's like if something's really good and everybody's watching it and you see these memes and you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to see that, and you're like scrolling past it in case it spoils it. So that was what it was like with like the Tiger King and things like that. And trying to think of the other ones that we've binge watched, where it's like you're doing episode after episode. Yeah, just like all the sort of big Netflix ones and yeah, like crime ones. Started Ozark recently as well. Everybody's been banging on about that. My mind's gone blank, but that's just all the sort of big Netflix ones at the minute. But I don't really get time now because I'm doing so much writing and whatever else that and filming this stuff that I'm sure I'll hopefully maybe have a bit of time once the show's written and in the can.
I'm sure the Tiger King gave you a bit of inspiration, did it?
Yeah, did I do something about Tiger King? I did a few. Oh, I did. I did a picture, a Photoshop of Black Mountain, the way they put certain slogans on Black Mountain, like Free Palestine and all. So I got a picture, but then I did Free Joe Exotic, but I did it too good, and certain people were like, it went really big on my page, and people thought it was real.
People are near Chrysler car trying to
it's somewhere. It says support the NHS. Nah, must have been a joke because like there was people commenting under my page going, "This is why I love back home. Always makes me laugh. Can't wait to wish I was there to see it. This isn't real. Like as if the guys that do that, were like up there, spent all day doing Free Joe Exotic.
Stripping all the beds down their house to get plenty of sheets to do it. Listen, Paddy, thanks very much for joining us, mate. We'll let you get on and hopefully we'll meet up again soon, get a proper chat, and look forward to the TV programme coming out.
Dead on, and the there's a wee leak in the back room there, Paul. So no better time to ask you than now. That's what he's like.
So that I can't say no.
I keep this Zoom going, and we'll film you coming around and doing it, sure, and just to keep
as long as I didn't cause it, that's all right.
Dead on. All right.
Thanks, Paddy. Thank you.
Thank you.